Hi, I'm Hallie Steinberg from Group 4. This is our dashboard on IMDb movie scores. So, this first page, we answer the question, what is the relationship between a movie's budget and its gross revenue? So, we have three charts that attempt to answer this question and give us kind of an insight into this relationship. So, this first graph is a heat map that represents the ratio between average gross revenue and budget within these different genres across different years. So it actually kind of shows us a bit of a trend. We categorize these squares, red, yellow, and green, based on industry standards that say that a movie should gross at least three times its budget in order to be considered profitable, in order to ensure that they're able to pay back any movie expenses. So these red ones are the ones that have much lower ratios and are less likely to kind of break even. And these green ones are the ones that have much higher ratios. They're earning a lot more revenue compared to their budget. And then so if we look down here in this bottom left-hand corner, we can see a similar relationship. These red ones, again, indicate those with much smaller ratios, and then the green ones are the ones with much bigger ratios. So we can see that relationship between budget and gross revenue. And then over here in the bottom right-hand corner, we can see how gross revenue varies based on content rating. So whether that's PG, rated R, something like that. So we can see how gross revenue varies within those different ratings. And then this little red bar up here, again, shows us kind of a goal that these movies should be striving for. Again, this red indicates the 3 times the average movie budget within these categories. So we can kind of see which categories are more so meeting those goals versus those that aren't. So in terms of interactions, if we click on any one of these squares up here, so maybe animation in 2006, it'll filter down these other two charts to just show us movies that fall into that category in that year. So we can see the different colors down here indicate the movies that are making money versus those that aren't. And then again, just the content ratings that fall into that category in that year. And then we can play around some filters up here. So if we only want to look at like a subset of movies and see how the colors are changing within that year, we can do that. And then we also have a highlighter up here. So if we only want to look at family movies, it'll show us just the line right here. And then it'll also point out those movies that fall into family category down there. And so that's about it for this page. For our next page, we answer the question, how important are IMDb scores? So this first graph shows us an overview of the average rating by each country that we have data for in our data set. The number on each country indicates an average IMDb rating, and then the color indicates average revenue. So the darker the gold, the higher the average gross revenue that country is making. The lighter the white, the less it's making. So we can hover over any one of these actually and see a little cool tooltip that shows a scatter plot of the relationship between average budget and average gross. So each dot in here represents a different movie that was made in that country, and then we can see kind of the relationship between the two variables. Over here on the right, we have just an overall trend line for average IMDb score across the years from 1927 to 2016. So we can see somewhat of a negative trend in movie scores. And then if we go down here to the bottom left-hand corner, we have a simple scatter plot that shows the relationship between gross revenue and average IMDb score. We can see that there's somewhat of a positive relationship between these two, indicating that a movie with a higher gross probably more likely has a higher IMDb score as well. And then if we go over here to the bottom right-hand corner, we have a box plot that indicates the distribution within each genre for IMDb scores. So we have a max score, a median score, and then a min score as well. So you can see kind of the distribution within each genre for IMDb scores. So if we go back to this map up here, we can interact with it by clicking on any one of these countries. So maybe we click on Brazil, and it'll go ahead and filter the rest of our charts down to show us just trends for that country. So we can see just the trend for Brazil over time. We can see just the movies that were produced in Brazil and how their gross relates to their scores. And then we can also see just those genres that fall into Brazil and then their distribution within Brazil. So then if we go on to our last dashboard page, we answer the question here, how does actor and director connectedness influence a movie's revenue? So this is where we kind of dug into network analysis and centrality measures for our director-actor network. So we first have a scatter plot over here that just represents the director's degree, so how many other directors he or she is connected to, related to that director's average gross revenue for all of his or her movies. So we can see a little bit of a positive relationship between the two, indicating that a director that is connected to more directors might have a higher gross revenue on average. And then we see a similar story over here with eigenvector centrality, indicating that a director's relative connectivity and influence in the network might relate to a higher gross revenue. And then down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we have a network graph that shows all of the actors and directors in our network up until 2016. Each line represents a connection, meaning that they worked on a movie together. And we can interact with this graph by, we can look at just those actors and directors that were in films with certain budgets, same with gross revenue. And then we can also look at IMDb scores if we want to look at those actors and directors that specifically are in movies with higher IMDb scores. And then we can also look at movie titles. So if you're interested in a specific movie, maybe you want to look at Avatar, you can see the actors and directors that were in that movie. And then lastly, we can look throughout the years and see how this network has built up. So we can start at the beginning in 1975, and we can watch as this network starts to build and starts to become more dense. So the dimmer white circles indicate actors and directors that have been around a while, and the brighter white ones are the new ones that are being added. So it's kind of a cool way to see how the movie industry is building up, how directors and actors are becoming more connected. So it's definitely something cool that shows that. And then lastly, each of these dots in any of these graphs, both up here and down here, represents either an actor or director. So we can actually click on any one of these and be prompted to go see their Wikipedia page, which will show up down here. So you can see any one of them, depending on whether you're interested in directors or actors. And again, you can use the filters to sort through exactly who you might be looking for. So that wraps up our dashboard. Thank you for watching. Yeah.